I used to believe marriages cracked like ice on a lake. Loud, obvious, impossible to ignore. Turns out, some break like paper. Quietly, with tiny tears you don't notice until you're holding confetti where a promise used to be. It began with a coffee cup. Not just any cup, an oversized ceramic mug from a corporate retreat my boss hosted at a lake resort 2 towns over. I'd never been invited. The department heads went. My wife, Jenna, helped cater as a favor to a friend on the event team. That's what she told me. Weeks later, the mug showed up in our dishwasher. The logo matched the retreat photos I'd seen on LinkedIn. Same mountain outline, same slogan curved under it. Lead together. The handle had a tiny chip shaped like a crescent. I picked it up, turned it in my hand, and felt something slide in my chest. A small shift, not a quake. The first tear. I didn't storm. I did what boring, decent men do. I observed. I wrote down dates. I noticed Jenna's new habit of keeping her phone face down and silenced, of stepping outside for air during family dinners while texting under the porch light. She'd return with a casual smile and a, "Where were we?" Like conversation is a couch you can leave and rejoin without anyone noticing the warmth gone from the cushion. I checked our shared calendar. She added yoga nights on Thursdays, which I'd never heard of before. I looked up the studio. They didn't have a Thursday class. I didn't tell her that. I just made a mental note next to the one that said my boss, Carter, had started using we when he meant I in meetings. We think this approach is stronger. We ran the numbers last night. We love that vendor. There was no we, there was me, and there was Carter. But pronouns slip when people forget their audience. At first I questioned myself. Suspicion corrodes quietly. It whispers that you're paranoid, that you're ungrateful, that you're inventing storms to justify buying a boat. I pushed it down, passed Jenna the salt, kissed her cheek, picked up dry cleaning, lived the quiet suburban ritual we'd built, Saturday grocery runs, my softball team on Wednesdays, her niece's dance recitals on Sundays. We were reliable. Reliability is not the same as trust. I learned that late. The confession didn't come from Jenna. It came from a stumbling detail at a barbecue when her cousin slipped and said, "Remember that night at the lake house?" and froze like a deer learning English mid-sentence. Her aunt coughed. Her mother raised an eyebrow that said, "Not here." Everyone went back to burgers and potato salad as if nothing had escaped. That's when I understood I wasn't just fighting secrets. I was standing in a crowded room where everyone pretended not to see the elephant wearing my boss's wristwatch. I took my time, ran a long, quiet play. I called a lawyer named Mendez, a woman my friend recommended after his divorce. Her office smelled like mint tea and new paper. She spoke in sentences shaped like road signs, direct, unemotional. If you suspect a relationship with a superior at your company, document. Don't confront until you have everything you need, and keep it clean. No shouting, no threats, no scenes. You're not writing an action movie. You're writing a record. I followed instructions like a man building a deck. Receipts, screenshots, calendar entries. Photos lifted from public social media with timestamps that like to hold hands. I didn't hack, I didn't spy. I simply used what they'd made public while assuming I wouldn't look. I also spoke to HR, hypothetically. What would happen if a manager began a personal relationship with an employee's spouse? The director frowned, gave me the company policy, and the phrase conflict of interest rolled across the table like a spare coin. I bought 2 envelopes, the heavy kind you use when you want paper to feel like metal. In one, I placed a copy of our prenuptial agreement, highlighted where it said adultery voided her claim on certain joint assets. I'd never thought about that clause after we married. It felt like something you pack in a closet and never touch. Now it was a lighthouse. In the other, I placed printouts. Dinner charges that matched Carter's travel dates. A hotel group photo with Jenna and Carter shoulder close. The lake house logo peeking from a towel in the background. A courier receipt addressed to Carter's condo with a handwritten note from Jenna taped on top. For your morning. J. Coffee beans, my mug's twin. I made a 3rd packet for HR. Strictly policy, clean. No rumors, only dates, receipts, and a timeline that read like a neat obituary for Carter's career. I did not speak. I did not hint. I played unremarkable husband for 3 weeks. Then my 37th birthday arrived and Jenna's mother insisted on hosting a party at their house. Family only, she said. which in her vocabulary included 20 people and a neighbor who might as well be blood. Carter would be there, she added carelessly, because he's practically family now with how much he does for Jenna at work. She said this while spooning sugar into her tea, like that was a normal sentence to say to me. I RSVP'd yes. I wore a blue button-down that Jenna always said made my eyes look brighter. I brought a pie from the bakery she loved. I hugged people who'd stopped hugging me months ago, I think, but had kept the habit out of politeness. I let everyone sing. I blew out candles while Jenna's hand hovered at my back without touching, which tells you more about a marriage than a lengthy caption ever could. After cake, I tapped my glass. Polite tink-tink. Heads turned. My father shifted, prepared to make a toast, because he's the family's designated orator. I shook my head. I've got this, Dad. I looked at their faces, a gallery of expressions someone might label concerned and trying to look casual. Carter stood near the patio doors, tie loose, tan sharp. He smiled the way people smile when they think they're above consequences. Jenna stood beside him, not touching but orbiting. Her mother sat on the sofa with a hostess's posture, certain the room belonged to her. I want to say thank you, I began. This year has taught me a lot about patience, perspective, and what family means. I swept the room in a small arc. It also taught me how quiet truth can be. Jenna flinched, almost imperceptible. She knows my voice better than anyone. She heard the steel I'd brought with me and mistaken the sound for sincerity for too long. Her uncle cleared his throat. Hey, let's not get heavy, huh? It's your birthday. Laughter surfaced like bubbles, then popped on contact with the air. I smiled. You're right. Let's keep it light. I gestured toward Carter. Boss, since you're here, I'd love to thank you for all the late nights you and Jenna pulled together. That level of teamwork is rare. A cousin snorted. Someone clinked a fork against a plate to cover it. The neighbor froze mid-sip. Carter's mouth twitched. Jenna's mother cut in with her signature brisk kindness that always lands like a slap with a mitten. Now, be mature. You're a smart man. You know how connections work. They're soulmates. She lifted her chin like a judge pronouncing sentence. Don't be selfish. They're happy together. Time did a funny thing. It spread out, thin as pulled sugar. I saw every detail. The glare on the patio door, the dip in the couch cushion under Jenna's mother's weight, the unlit candle wick stuck in a crumb on my plate. I heard my own heart slow down, count to 3, and return to normal. Then I smiled. Not a grin, not a tremor. A straight, warm line that made people think they'd guessed wrong. You're right, I said. I should be happy for them. Jenna's eyes filled. Relief first. He's surrendering. Then fear. What has he done? Then something like recognition. She'd married the steady man who rebuilt fences on Saturdays. She forgot steady doesn't mean soft. I picked up 2 envelopes from my chair and crossed the room. I handed one to Jenna, one to her parents. As I did, I placed a third envelope on the console table behind Carter, addressed in block letters to HR, where I knew her mother would spot it if she turned, because she collects mail at parties like trophies. I reached for my coat, no hurry, no performance, just a man who'd finished a job. Where are you going? Jenna asked, voice thin and almost child-small. The way people sound when an exam begins and they realize they studied the wrong chapter. Home, I said. I already made my wish. Sit, her mother ordered, leaning forward. We're not doing drama tonight. Not drama, I said calmly. Documentation. Carter laughed like a man who thinks laughter is a weapon. Hey, come on, big guy, we don't need to. The upstairs toddler monitor crackled with a distant lullaby as if the house wanted a soundtrack. I reached the doorway. The night air waited beyond, cool and decent. Behind me, paper tore, a gasp from Jenna, a sharp inhale from her father, a noise from her mother that sounded like she'd swallowed a lemon whole. Carter's voice lost its volume. What is this? I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. I'd seen those pages a dozen times. Dates, screenshots, policy printouts, the prenup clause highlighted in yellow like sunlight. I opened the front door and stepped onto the porch, where a moth bumped stupidly against the lantern like it believed in second chances. Mark! Jenna screamed, something frantic and jagged ripping through her composure. Mark, wait! I paused only long enough to set a small cardboard box by the potted fern, keys, garage opener, and the spare credit card I'd canceled 2 days earlier. You'll need those, I said over my shoulder. Then I walked toward my car, under a sky smeared with city glow and faint stars. The door clicked shut behind me. Inside that house, voices collided. Jenna crying my name, her mother snapping at Carter, her father asking questions too late to matter. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from my attorney. "Everything's filed first thing tomorrow. Proud of how you handled that." Another from HR, time-stamped 10 minutes earlier. "Received your materials. Will follow policy." I slid into the driver's seat, hands steady on the wheel. If anyone had looked, they would have said I was smiling. I started the car, backed out slow, and didn't glance at the window. I didn't need a final look. I'd seen all I needed to see the moment a chipped mug clinked in our sink and told me a story everyone else already knew. In my rearview mirror, the porch light burned. My phone lit again, then again, then again. Calls, messages, an emergency siren of people who had finally read what was in their hands. Minutes later, as I reached the stop sign at the end of their street, the screaming started. And for the first time in months, the sound wasn't mine. I drove straight through the night. The roads were empty, the world quiet enough to hear my thoughts scraping against each other. Every call from Jenna buzzed against the console, unanswered, then silenced. Somewhere between one small town and the next, I pulled into an empty gas station, bought a coffee that tasted like burnt rubber, and just sat there. It wasn't joy I felt. It was something cleaner, lighter. The noise in my head had finally gone silent. I had handed them the truth, and the truth had done what shouting never could. When I reached home, the porch light I'd left on felt like a small welcome. Scout, our golden retriever, greeted me with the same excitement as always. Dogs don't ask questions, they just love. I scratched his ears, set my keys on the counter, and realized how peaceful a house can feel when it stops holding lies. At sunrise, my phone buzzed again. I let it ring. Then another call, this time from a number I didn't recognize. I answered. "This is Donna from HR," a calm voice said. "Mr. Carter resigned this morning." "Effective immediately. I wanted to inform you before the official notice goes out." I thanked her. She hesitated. "You did the right thing," she said softly. By noon, word had spread through the company. I got a few awkward texts from coworkers, half concerned, half curious. I ignored them. I spent the day cleaning, boxing up Jenna's things, the clothes she'd left, the framed photos, the mug that had started it all. I left her wedding dress folded in its box on the bed. She could collect it whenever she dared. In the afternoon, I finally read her messages. "Please just talk to me. You ruined everything." "I'm sorry," I panicked. "Can we start over?" "I'll do anything, Mark. Please answer me." The shift from anger to begging was fast. Guilt changes tone quickly when people realize the world stopped spinning around them. Then came the message that told me everything. They fired him. His wife threw him out. "Please, I can't do this alone." It was never about love. It was about losing comfort. That night, I called Mendez. "Everything's in motion," she said. "Your divorce paperwork will be served tomorrow morning. You're free to stay silent." "Good," I said. "I've said enough." Days passed. The story traveled through our town like wildfire. Friends I thought were neutral suddenly picked sides. A few offered sympathy, others gossip. I didn't care. I'd stopped needing approval the moment I walked out that door. Jenna showed up 3 days later. She stood on my porch, eyes red, holding a folder of papers and a small box. I didn't open the door right away. "Please," she said through the screen, "I just want to return your things." I stepped outside, keeping the door behind me half closed. She handed me the box. It held my watch, my cufflinks, the photo of us from our wedding day. The frame was cracked. "I didn't know what to do," she said, voice shaking. "I didn't mean for it to go that far." "You meant every step," I said quietly. "You just didn't expect the ending." She looked down. "They all knew," she whispered. "My parents, my cousins, they said it wasn't cheating if I was finally happy. I was stupid enough to believe them." "I know," I said. "They told me the same thing, right before I handed them proof." Tears ran down her face, but I'd run out of sympathy. "You destroyed your life in front of a cake and a crowd, Jenna. That wasn't me. That was honesty catching up." "I lost everything," she sobbed. "Please don't let it end like this." I thought about the man I used to be, The one who would have forgiven, tried again, rebuilt what couldn't stand. That man had died the night I saw their faces when the envelopes opened. "Jenna," I said, steady, "it already ended. You just didn't feel it until now." She covered her face and walked away slowly, shoulders trembling. Scout watched from the window, tail low, as if even he understood this was a goodbye. The next morning, Mendez called again. "It's official," she signed the acknowledgement. I thanked her, closed my laptop, and sat on the porch with a cup of coffee. The world outside felt new, quiet in the right ways. I didn't need revenge anymore. The truth had already done the job. Later that week, a letter came in the mail, from her mother, just a single line. "We didn't mean to hurt you. We thought it was love." I folded the paper once and tossed it into the trash. Some people never understand that love built on lies isn't love, it's theater. I took Scout for a walk that evening. The air was cool, the neighborhood calm. I passed the park where Jenna and I once sat planning a future that now felt like someone else's dream. I didn't feel anger, I felt free. When I got home, my phone buzzed again, an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Mr. Anderson, this is Detective Pierce. We received some financial documents through your attorney. Looks like Carter's been using company funds for personal travel. You might want to know you weren't the only one he betrayed." I laughed softly. Sounds like he finally met his karma. The detective chuckled. "Yeah, seems like everyone's finding out who he really was." I thanked him and hung up. For the first time in a long while, I leaned back, closed my eyes, and let peace fill the space where heartbreak used to live. Revenge hadn't been a shout. It had been a smile. And sometimes, that's all it takes for the truth to finish what betrayal started. Months passed, and the chaos faded into something distant, like an echo that only reached me when the world went quiet. I moved into a small townhouse on the other side of town. Nothing fancy. Just clean, simple, mine. Scout adapted faster than I did. He'd lie in the sun by the window, his tail thumping every time I walked past, as if to remind me that not everything had fallen apart. People always say time heals, but time alone doesn't fix anything. It's what you do with it. I filled mine with new habits, morning runs, learning to cook properly instead of surviving on takeout, and saying yes when friends invited me places. The silence that once felt unbearable turned into peace. One afternoon I got a letter forwarded from my old address. It was from Jenna, no dramatic handwriting, no perfume, just a plain envelope. Inside was a single page. "I know sorry doesn't fix anything, but I wanted to tell you I'm getting help. Therapy, new job, new town. Mom's furious, Dad won't speak to me, but I needed to leave them too. They convinced me to call what I did love. It was selfishness. I hope you find someone who never makes you question your worth." There was no plea, no manipulation, just an exhausted honesty that almost sounded like peace. I didn't reply. Some things deserve silence, not closure. A week later, my boss's replacement called me in. "We're restructuring," she said. "Given what happened and the professionalism you showed, we'd like to promote you." I almost laughed. The irony wasn't lost on me. The position Carter once bragged about, the one he'd risked everything to impress her with, now had my name on it. I accepted quietly. Revenge doesn't always come as drama. It sometimes comes disguised as progress. On my first day in the new office, I noticed the framed quote on the wall. "Integrity is doing the right thing when no one's watching." I thought about Jenna, about her mother's smug face at that party, and the way truth had dismantled their little performance piece in minutes. Sometimes doing the right thing isn't about kindness. It's about refusing to live in someone else's lie. That weekend I drove out to the coast. I hadn't been there in years. The ocean air hit like a reset button. I walked along the shoreline until the sand cooled beneath my feet. The sky was pink with evening light, the kind of view that makes you believe in fresh starts. I sat down and let the waves erase the footprints behind me. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the photo album I'd once labeled us. It was empty now, cleared months ago, but I didn't feel the sting anymore. Instead, I opened the camera, pointed it at the horizon, and took a new picture. I renamed the folder New Life. Back in town, word trickled through mutual friends that Carter had been indicted for corporate fraud. Turns out the company audit HR launched after my report uncovered years of misuse. He'd lost everything: his job, his marriage, his reputation. Karma has perfect timing, you just have to let it work. One evening my friend Ethan invited me to a cookout. His sister was visiting, Lena. She had an easy laugh, honest eyes, and a way of asking questions that made silence comfortable. We talked for hours without touching the past. It was the first time I didn't feel like half of a broken story. When she asked if I'd ever been married, I didn't flinch. "Yeah," I said, "but I learned a lot from it." "Good lessons?" she asked. "Expensive ones," I said, and we both laughed. Over the next few months, we started seeing each other. Slowly, carefully. No grand gestures, no promises we couldn't keep, just truth. Simple, consistent truth. Sometimes, late at night, I'd think about that birthday party. The laughter before the silence, the sound of paper tearing, the gasps that followed. That was the moment my old life ended. But it was also the moment I started choosing myself. Jenna once told me happiness was about finding your other half. She was wrong. Happiness is realizing you were whole all along. Now, when I smile, it isn't to hide pain or mask revenge. It's just because life feels light again. The kind of light that doesn't need to prove anything. And if anyone ever asks me what happened that night, I just say this: they all told me to be mature and accept it, so I did. I accepted that the best thing I could do was walk away. Then I smile, the same calm smile that started it all, and mean it this time.